Welcome back to the question and answer session, or as it's been deemed by the chat, the After Dark section, where we take questions from the audience. If you have a question, you're watching this live, make sure you put brackets question or just question in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. I have all of those questions on for both of y'all. If you're on the, I guess it's now the Star Citizen Content Creators Discord, under the Captain's Table section, there is a question bot section where all of the questions are now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can read them all as
cool.
well. It scrapes from both YouTube and Twitch, and so if the YouTubers, I forgot to set restream properly, so you'll only see Twitch, but I am watching the YouTube's feed as well. So, and it is scraping from YouTube feed. So
he's ignoring you. He's treating YouTube as second-class citizens.
I feel ignored.
You are now moon citizens.
All right, so the first question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, how are these new activities subsequently different from any other points of interest that ever been in the game since outposts and bunkers, and as such were first implemented? They're just point of interests with a larger and more complex than we've had to date. I mean, it's the rewards. Like, am I wrong? Like, we get more rewards from these new activities than we had in the past ones.
I can be critical, but I feel like that's a bit cynical. I personally think it's definitely more than bunkers. There clearly is a lot of effort that's been put into it to try to make it a more interesting thing to do with, you know, plots and subplots, and I mean it's not super deep and it's not connected to some wider story right now, but I think there's clearly a bigger effort going into a lot of elements. These are more expansive, multi-stepped events, activities with rewards at the end that are supposed to kind of they kind of feel like a placeholder for crafting right now. Like Wicklow is basically the placeholder for crafting. You throw stuff in him and he gives stuff out. He's a resource sink, right? And these activities are supposed to be loops that you go back to get these really valuable resources. So I think it's quite different than those points of interest, because in those you just go there, kill the thing, go back, rinse, repeat, and there's really nothing but money for reward. And we've had that since, missions were a thing in Star Citizen.
Tomato?
Can I first just say I did not know that this name was Gin and Tonic?
Yeah.
I always read it as Janan Tanic.
It's a Hitchhiker's Guide reference. It's the name. It's the name of a character in Hitchhiker's Guide. So.
Okay, well, yeah. I watched that when I was like -5 and only once. I don't remember that.
I don't even think it was in the movie. I think it's in the book. So.
Oh, okay. I don't read. Sorry, I'm a gamer. I do think that these are basically points of interest. Like, I agree. They are. If you strip them down to their most basic, they're points of interest. But CIG has added some environmental storytelling. They've added better loot. They've added some stories that can pick up when you get there. Everything besides the stories make them feel like a point of interest, a much better point of interest, but still, yeah, a central point of interest. I think adding in that narrative element takes them beyond, but that's not tied to the locations. They could do something like that for the entirety of Hearst or Lorville, which I think they said they're going to do. So, yeah, I don't know if I'd break it out of a point of interest so much as just say it's that with a combination of other things. Definitely better delivery than what they gave us with bunkers.
Mm-hmm. I believe that they're more than just points of interest, because I think they're going to be. Of course, they have more story to them, and there's like a series of things, like puzzles you have to complete to unlock things, which we haven't really seen with points of interest in the past. Even with like distribution centers, which they still haven't fully utilized to their full ability. There's more complexities to it, and
absolutely.
And what I like to call them is flashpoints. I used to, back in the Halo days, I used to love to watch.
Yay, Halo mentioned.
Yeah. So Bungie used to release heat maps of each map in the Halo 2 Halo 2 and Halo 3 multiplayers, where you could see where all of the conflicts would happen. And I always found that fascinating, because I also saw Ubisoft, the devs, and specifically Ubisoft, I think it's Montreal, who does Far Cry. They used to do the same thing where they would like point out like heat maps on Far Cry of like where all these activities were, like these interactions were taking place with between like where the players would go and like where they would fight in specific areas and such.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I see these as heat maps, as like sort of the idea is that CIG is trying to funnel people into these locations to create interactions in these locations. A specific spot where people can like, I want to interact with somebody, I can go here. Like a Daisy Northwest Airfield,
right?
You know,
right.
that kind of thing.
I think you're right.
You know,
go ahead, Morph.
Go ahead, Tomato.
Oh, Tomato.
No, Morph.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think one of the problems I think with Star Citizen, just inherently with making a game that simulates spaces, even if it's not full scale, but to a massive scale, that's unprecedented in gaming. Like, there's no other game that makes gameplay spaces as big as Star Citizen, right?
Mhm.
Is that you would need so many more players in server meshing to actually ever have them interact in a meaningful way because of how big the spaces are. So you kind of do have to design these, as nexuses of activity where you draw players together for these interesting interactions, this unscripted gameplay. So yeah, I think that's a really astute observation that has been missing from this conversation till now. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's really important, I think.
Tomato?
There is a video. I was trying to find it so I could tell you exactly what it's called. When I do find it, though, I'll send it to you guys. I quoted it on a video earlier this year. Todd Pappy getting interviewed about PvP in the game by Jared, and he goes into detail about how they want it to work. And I think it's something they're still sticking to, but he literally says, we are creating hotspots and he references some of the locations that were already in the game. He's like, we want to create these hotspots so the people who know what they can get into will go there, and the people who don't want any of that will stay away from there. And that's what these are. It's just that there aren't enough places in the game yet, so the people who don't want to go there still feel drawn to there because things like Wicklow and CIG wanting to get everyone involved is making everyone think they need to go there. But in like 5 years, these should be hotspots, right?
If they still work.
If they still work. Yeah.
That's the frustrating part. Yeah.
It's always that. Big old caveat there.
I think that is actually a potential source of the issues, that there are a lot of different activities to do. Like, those missions are more PvE because they spawn for the player, right? So it's much harder for another player to happen upon, say, the caterpillar activity, right? Because it spawns in the middle of space.
Yeah.
If those things were working, if we had more of those things working still, I think players, probably more especially newer ones that haven't experienced it before, would feel very differently. They'd feel like there are a diversity of different activities depending on their mood. Not enough, sure, but it'd be better, I feel like.
Yeah. The Black Kite mission is a great example of one that has a full narrative. You can find all of the data pads and figure out what happened to the Black Kite, and you have a full puzzle you have to kind of figure out how to solve the issue. But it's gone. It's not in the game anymore. So
yeah.
Do
you guys think that Star Sim will still do what they said that Quantum was going to do, basically just like probability wise spawning derelicts or pirate fights or outposts, or not outposts, but like security that you would run into out in space that could still act like a small scale sandbox location, like you're saying?
I don't, they haven't we haven't seen Tony Z for a very, 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 very long time. And whenever CIG, and we're talking from history, because this has happened multiple times, when they stop talking about something, it's usually because they've had to go back to the drawing board and do something different.
Yeah.
So I think the only conclusion we can come from this is that their original plan that Tony outlined with Quanta is not what they're doing anymore. And they're trying to figure out something else, but they don't know what it is yet. So they're not telling us until they figure it out. That is my read on the situation. It's exactly what happened before with what was the last one that this occurred with? Was it
iCache?
What? iCache. Yeah, the big one was iCache, right? So I think that's what's happening. So it's hard to know. It's really hard to know.
I think, and it's important to note with like iCache, they still ended up going to the same location. It's just the technology and the approach they were going for didn't work because they ended up having to do Pcache, rather than iCache, but that changed how they approached it, but the end result was the same. I think we're still going to see.
It still took 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there may be some level of we don't know. We really don't know. Like the way that was talked about was wild and exciting and ambitious. It may be, just purely speculating here. I mean, that's why would you come to a podcast if we were speculating anyway? But it could just be that it's too ambitious and that there's no way to do it exactly the way that it's been outlined, and they need to kind of streamline the vision a little bit and make it a little bit. Well, who knows? That could be the problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is from Dark Dragoon 67, who asks, I don't know if there will ever be a good time to ask this, but why does CIG go totally radio silent towards concierge? Do you guys think that'll be overhauling the how the whole reward system works like they did with referral rewards? Because referral rewards is getting completely overhauled in January or July, so in a month from this recording. I am not familiar with concierge stuff because I am mostly, even though I am a concierge, I think I've used it once. Space or Morph, do either of you have experience with concierge?
I have used it before, several times. My specific use case has always been for asking questions regarding the store, or like an issue with one of the things I should have received or whatever. And in terms of the forums, I feel like they're quite useless. I think at one time when CIG were smaller and they interacted with people more directly, it was something quite nice. But as time has gone on, I think it's become untenable. There's more and more people in that concierge. This is my read on it. I don't have any inside information on it, okay? It's become more untenable. There's a negative feeling, I think, as well, that it might give to the community if they're favoriting some people who've spent more money over others, even though that's definitely probably the case.
Mm-hmm.
The optics of it aren't super good. Although CIG have made a lot of decisions that seem to be kind of
not good at optics. Yeah.
So I think the more likely, oftentimes when these types of things happen, it's not the complex reason, it's the most simple reason you can think of, and I think it's just because they don't have the resources and it's troublesome. I mean, that'd be my guess. And it's not even like cynically like they don't care, it's just they have so many things to take care of, they don't have time to just focus on that community.
I believe the guy who was in charge of concierge is no longer there, so I don't even know who's in charge of concierge. I think they hired a new person recently, but to give you an idea, for those of you who are concierge, I believe there is one person who's in charge of concierge, a single person. And a concierge is just if you've spent more than $1,000 in the game. And that's quite a lot of people. So, and I remember talking with the community team, with Xylo and Galactica and Ulf and stuff like that, about like, hey, are you all going to do a content creator partnership in the future? Because a lot of other games do have systems where they kind of work with content creators. And every single time I've talked about them, with that, they said, yes, we plan on doing that, but we need the right time and we need the resources. And that has been a discussion that's been going on since like 2017, as far as I know. So
yeah, I don't know what it like. We're starting to get into territory that I don't think a lot of people can relate to. Whenever you touch on the subject, people get weird about it because they feel like you're trying to get something special because you're a content creator, and they feel like, oh, you shouldn't do that because everybody should be treated equally. But from a pure business perspective, it makes a lot of sense to give certain tools and make the content creators' lives just a little bit easier, so they produce more content for you. It's like it's a direct benefit to the company to make more money, to get that advertisement out there, right? That's why really big do you think EA's whole thing where they fly people out to try games is out of the goodness of their heart? No, they couldn't care less. Okay, this is the company that set the world on fire with loot boxes and Battlefront 2. Okay, so they're doing it because they know it makes them money. So that is the only thing that really baffles me about CIG, is their creator program is so underdeveloped, and I feel like they could get a lot more mileage out of it by using it to leverage talking to creators outside of the existing community to reach more people, to help shape the narrative a little bit more in their favor. I think one of the things that happens from just not caring about optics and saying like any type of advertisement or any type of what's the saying?
All
Any
news is good
publicity
news
is
as long as
good
they spell your
publicity.
name right.
No, any publicity is good publicity,
Yeah.
right? That whole thing.
Yeah.
I think that that's completely false because if you let any publicity be good, any publicity happen, then you let other people set the narrative, and that narrative may be overall destructive in the long run to you.
Mhm.
So if they were a bit more engaged, they might have been able to help inform people, not deceive or manipulate, not talking about this cynically, but just help inform people why things are happening the way they're happening, right? So
Man, that
that's
dude,
my
there's like
perspective
a
on it.
good subset of people who believe that is well and true already happening. Like that
If
there are
if
people who believe that all three of us are on their payroll. I've seen them say Jack
I
Frags
know.
is getting paid. I've
yeah,
seen Level Caps are getting paid. Summit
listen,
1G's getting paid.
The
It's
listen.
big
just,
I,
If
it'll always be
the
like
big
that.
guys probably are though. I have no inside information on this, but usually those big guys, if you want them to do something, you do have to pay them. But people like me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so negative about us,
yeah,
but we are so tiny compared to these
we are.
Oh yeah, I'm not
multi-million
next to Jack
dollar.
Frags, dude.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
next to Jack Frags, like the pinnacle of his area of YouTube, right? That type of YouTuber, they get paid. 100% they get paid.
yeah. But I mean,
So
You
there's
think that
also
they are
legal
spending? You think
ramifications if they don't announce that they're being paid, and usually
oh well, all they have to all they got to do is say that this is sponsored, and that
yeah,
covers what
yeah.
they're being paid in some
They
form.
have to make some message, and I've never heard any of them. I've watched a lot of those videos from them.
Yeah, I
I've
don't.
never heard
Oh,
them
okay,
say
okay.
they're sponsored, which is why I like.
Interesting.
Yeah. But and I hey, I think CIG should sponsor people in the future, but I don't know that my point of bringing up that like content creator thing is that they have 5 community managers. So they have a lot of people who are involved in managing the community. Yet they still don't have the resources for a content creator, even a basic content creator program where they kind of
Dude,
work with content creators. So I don't
look at the
think
development.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like they just don't seem to have the resources available. So I
Right.
think the concierge issue is less of a like why haven't they done that? It's because they just don't have the content. They don't have the people. Like they don't have the people to put into the effort for those sorts of things. So
This company, I think if they succeed this year and making the money that they seem to feel like they need for next year leading up to Squadron, I think this is going to look like an entirely different company in the lead up to Squadron. I think they will have those kinds of content creator things going on. Marketing's going to be a lot more tight. Their messaging's probably going to be a lot more limited. So I could see the concierge thing becoming a thing maybe after Squadron comes out.
I think
But
they
even
kind of
then,
I think they've got to get on it faster though.
they do.
It's sometimes it's with a company as big as this, with a project as big as this, with so many people now covering this and following this. It's hard sometimes to remember that sometimes a single person or a couple people can make a huge difference. And I think Jake Acapella, they were such a huge part of the communication between CIG and the community. When there was some kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding or misinterpretation of an SCL or an ISC or something, he would get out and we'd talk to people in all these discords and tell them, hey, no, that's not what that's not that we're thinking.
Yeah.
You misunderstood that, right? And then the drama would just be gone because they're communicating with the community with the content creators, and when they put out videos, they're not just putting off like these completely wrong misinterpretations, and it's not coming from like a bad place, right? Is because we're only operating off the information that we have, and we're trying to provide information to the community
Mhm.
to try to help them better understand, help us better understand, right? And we've lost that, and so I really think that they need to find some kind of replacement for that. And since he left, there's not. Since they left, I personally haven't noticed. I feel like the communication has been a lot worse. I mean,
Yeah.
like sometimes when things go wrong, there's no one I can talk to.
It feels
so-
like there needs to be a giant shitstorm brewed by the community for even Tyler to be able to post on Spectrum or to make a statement these days.
And even then, like how many statements? Okay, I personally didn't talk to Z when this whole thing happened with the blades.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to speak to him. I didn't speak to anybody from CIG. All of my opinions were just clearly like just straight to YouTube because there was no communication to talk about what their thought process was with this, right? So we had to kind of wait to see what they would say, and there were still like questions based on what's. And I don't want to rehash this whole trauma. That's not
No.
what this conversation's about. But I'm just trying to hit home that like that communication has a real consequence. That lack of communication has a real consequence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it's something they need to work on with Squadron 42 because Squadron 42 is not like just another release. It's their first major video game release. They need to have more than just their typical Star Citizen coverage on that. And without the framework in place to deal with that situation or deal with any kind of weird situations that might pop up with Squadron as it's hitting to the release, they're setting themselves up for just PR blunders, which I hope they don't do, but we'll see. All right, let's move on to the next question. Admiral Kusanagi asks, do you think that these events that use a tram to get there are instances for greater stability? We see this in the personal hangars now. Oh, so do you think that he's asking, do you think we will see them being instanced? Like, say, with ASD getting into the tram, now you get transferred into an instance where you can't. Do you think that's going to happen? Space?
I think that will happen somehow. I mean, we'll have instances. I don't think that that's necessarily what they're thinking for this situation. It seems like for this one, it's just trying to limit where other vehicles and stuff can get close to the location that they're running on.
Morph?
Yeah, no, I think that so I think I may have some, and I don't want to remember. I don't remember specifically where this came from. I believe it's public knowledge. One of the main issues with the net coding is like physics calculations, and that's what causes like server lag spikes and such. Like when things get really bad, it's often because something's colliding with something. Some like a bunch of guns were spawned inside of a box or something, and they're bouncing around, and it's causing the server to lag. So by making a different server with the last area of Stormbreaker, what they were hoping to do, my guess from this, is to remove that physics collision issue that they were having with all these ships parked around, causing the tick rate to go down, the frame rate to go down for the server. So absolutely, yes, they're going to do it, and I think it's going to be 100% for performance reasons, to try to make sure that it's as smooth and good as an experience as possible, the way that they designed it. Unlike most of the time when I played it, when everything was glitching and teleporting around.
I do think that's sort of the plan as well. It's performance, but I think it's also gameplay reasons. In some cases, they want to have like that 4-player experience, and they don't want to have that PvP sort of element in there. There'll be some of that. But yeah, I think performance is the big reason.
That's not the case yet, right? Because there's no restriction on PvP.
No.
And that's not even a mechanic they've discussed yet. So,
but I mean, like the idea being you in a party, you enter a place, and when you enter a place, that's like the depths, the under the municipal works.
Right.
You know,
of course.
Sort of thing. And they've talked about it a little bit with the Vandal incursions, but I don't think that's going to prevent PvP either way. You can still turn around and shoot the other person, but they're going to be instanced in the sense there'll be a certain number of people who will only be allowed in there. I think that's really like the question is like, will this be done in the future? And I think dynamic server meshing is the answer. Like they need DSM to work in order for them to help with some of these things, and instancing will also help a little bit. But you can't get instancing in these sorts of events without DSM being present in some shape. So, all right. Gin and Tonic asks, management not allocating sufficient resources to maintain applications/features once they've been launched has been an issue at every company I've ever worked at. For context, Jin has worked at, I know for sure, at EA, and like EA in the 90s. So, you know, old school original EA. You can't abandon a baby once it's born. That is a legitimate complaint about existing POIs. What shouldn't be adding up to support is what shouldn't adding that support to Year of Stability seem like a perfect thing to take up. Basically, he's asking, shouldn't they be focusing on that this year for the Year of Stability, to like focus on a team or a technique or tools to maintain these sorts of persistent sandbox activities?
I personally think, and this is my opinion, not from inside information, to clarify, that they they underestimated the amount of work that they would need to both improve the stability of the game while adding content into it. I think that they still don't have enough resources because of their focus on Squadron 42 to also maintain things while they're trying to keep people's interest with content in this year where they don't have the resources to be making a lot of tech features. That's my view on it.
I think so. Generally speaking, I don't believe that the year of stability was done out of a sense of we need to do this for a long-term planning. I think it was them sitting around, the management team sitting around, looking at both funding and activity in the game, as well as where they are currently with what they have. And they said, we need to fix these specific things to make sure that when we go forward, now that we've got this big technology server meshing in, we need to make sure everything is functioning while we add more things. So we can't add anything crazy because it might break the game, and that's going to reduce activity. It might reduce funding, and it's probably going to hurt long-term development of the game overall. But I don't think it was designed as like we're going to make sure that every single thing that could go wrong, we fix in the problem. I think it was just more of we fix these problems. And I think you're right. They probably got to fixing it and started putting the guts out of some of these things and went, this is going to take longer than we thought. and are currently working on that. And we should know that because they've been pretty much radio silent up until I think this last monthly report, even on the refactor. Like they've completely changed the what was it called? The
transit rework to the transport system.
Transport system. Yeah. So that's the first time we heard about that in this last monthly report. So we'll probably hear more about
the one before system. That they said it in April's too.
They talk about it? I didn't remember them saying.
Yeah, they said that they were specifically going to have a team working on the transit refactor and then another team work on what they wanted to call the transport system itself, which was that was the sign that, oh, this is going to take longer. Yeah. Like if they're breaking it up into two teams.
Yeah, they said that back in and that's kind of what Benoit said back in February. But that's an example of just I think that they're starting to grapple with the idea that what they actually have to do and having to how to allocate resources for it.
Yeah. I think that what's the question again?
The question is, do you think this whole maintaining locations so they don't break, shouldn't that be something they do with this year of stability?
I think it probably, but I also think that this method of adding locations they're doing now won't be the bulk of what they're actually delivering. I think that's going to be their Starchitect initiative. And if that does work the way that they want it to, I think the most important thing is making sure that they have tools within that to fix all their locations. Because ain't no way they're going to be going around to every location by hand and making sure that they have their problems fixed. They need to make sure that system, whatever it is that runs Starchitect and all these thousands of points of interest that they're talking about, that it's you put a fix in here and all the outposts get their update. Because that's going to be, talk about, tech debt or location debt or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I think it's more said earlier. This game is, there may be maybe games that are bigger in terms of number of systems or in terms of places, but the granular detail and the scale of Star Citizen is literally a game that I don't think you can see any other games for. The amount of stuff they want to do and the stuff they are doing. So they need to have big systems to be able to deal with all of the problems rather than sandbox activity, face punch and die doesn't exist and it doesn't work anymore, but it'll take us 15 people to fix that problem take them 6 months to fix that problem. So for 6 months, that whole activity doesn't work. It's that's not tenable. So, all right. Shimpasta asks another year of stability question. This is the year of stability and things seem more stable. Having said that, do you feel that CIG also needs to start focusing on quality of life as well? Yes.
Yes.
No, I think life should be more terrible.
Terrible, yeah.
I want lower quality. No.
I've always taken it as they are. They said that it is the year of playability, and I think that's always missed. Is they said playability because they really wanted to make sure people knew we are including content in this. It's content, stability, and performance. And I always thought their whole performance part was kind of quality of life, like the ship collision physics kind of stuff, you know?
That was so nice.
So I think they should be.
Yeah.
I think they are doing a little bit of it. The one thing that is also important to note is like quality of life has improved. Like things like the new player experience has gotten better. They've definitely been focusing on ways of like Gilly was his name. Gilly is a great example of like sort of a quality of life that's also content, that's also sort of introduction, because his gauntlet is a great sort of ease your way up through how to play combat missions. You know, step one is super easy. I think it's just go to satellite arrays, scan arrays, you're done. Blow up a satellite array if it's hostile. Step two is fight one or two people. Step three is fight multiple people. Step four is fight larger people. And it goes kind of steps up to like capital ship combat at the end. And I've heard a lot of people get stuck on like 6 or 7, where you start hitting the higher levels and it's like, ooh, but it's not like you're blocked out. You can still take it and do it if you want to, or you can go back and grind and get better at it. And then each of those steps sort of mirrors the combat of mercenary work or bounty hunter work in terms of the kind of difficulty scale you have. So as you get better at each of those scales, you can come back and do the gauntlet and do better. And that's sort of in my mind, a quality of life feature, because it's sort of adding in sort of a framework for combat pilots of how to play the game. If you're brand new and you don't know how to play the game, you can just go to the Gilly mission, which is set as a tutorial, and you kind of move that way, move that direction. So, yeah.
Where's the mining ones, though?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I think that's another question where people want is the industry focus, sort of those sides of things. But I think what you said earlier, it just CAG has combat working. It's easier to make.
Yeah. It annoys me because the mining, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a rant. The mining missions were talked about like 2 years ago when they were working on salvage missions. And I hate that we got salvage missions and not mining missions for the more advanced mining gameplay.
Yeah. I'm hoping that feature is probably, I'm guessing that it's locked behind scanning, because I feel like there's a lot of parts of the game, which the mercenary missions, one of those are the ambush missions. They just sort of put a big arrow, say, go hide here. And it feels very like, okay, I'm just going to, this is like very modern gaming, big yellow mark to go to region. And I can imagine that in the future, what CIG wants to do is say, go hide, and you can scan and find those locations naturally. And they could be multiple locations, and you can hide them. And some are bigger, some are smaller, and you just go to there within a time limit. And there's probably going to be more interaction behind that. That's just sort of what they have right now, and it's available, but it's locked behind features, which they haven't got out yet. Sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah, features.
No. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Gin and Tonic asks, one of the complaints about these new POIs is that they're overrun and camped. Isn't that because they're new? Once their new wears off, won't they function more as they intended to be? This is where I'm going to get my soapbox in this one. The problem is that it's not just that they're new, it's that CIG locks the most recent rewards behind those activities, those places. So they're camped and overrun because everyone's going to the new place so they can get their materials for Wicklow, so they can get the new Wicklow stuff. And it's because also they're new and people want to enjoy it and play it. But then there's no reason to go back to Hathor and do more mining stuff unless you have those missions, because there's just, other than that, just making money. And, you know, making money is easy to do in Star Citizen. It's not exactly a difficult process, especially as you get bigger ships and, you know, participate in any sorts of activity. So there's just still needs to be a reason behind going back to these locations. So it's not just that like these places are new and cramped. It's that CIG has said in the past, like, yeah, it's new. Everyone's going to go to the new hotness. Just come back in the next patch when we move on to the next new hotness, and it'll be easier. But there's no reason to do so. What are your thoughts?
Dude, I heard that they backed down on the whole idea that they were like kind of making the scripts not as important. But yeah, it's crazy to not still keep the reason for people to go there, whether it's rotating the loot or adding new objectives or something.
Yeah. So people are saying that it's content to test it. I think that's the point. I think the point is to force people to test it.
Sorry about that.
It's cool. I was about to say, like, we doing the call to prayer. It's a very weird call to prayer.
No, I think there might be some kind of
Construction.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think CIG is trying to force players to play it. I think they just want players to play their new content.
Yeah, absolutely.
The rule of, like, I think people put in a lot more malicious intent with CIG's actions and not realize that a lot of CIG is just driven by what is cool. Because they're
also
game developers,
The developers who are working on, like, the individuals who are actually the ones in the trenches developing this, of course they want you to play it.
Yeah.
They want to see people playing the thing that they've spent a ton of time working on.
Yeah. So they want to find ways of having you play it and enjoy it. Testing it helps, but they want you to play it. It's not like the person who made Hathor is going to not want you to go back to Hathor and enjoy Hathor. It's like, why does an artist paint? Why does a writer write? Why does an actor act? It's because they want you to see what they do. They want you to see the art, and playing is the art of the developers. So, all right. Gin and Tonic asks, oh no, we already kind of did that. Sujanis21 asks, assuming they maintain the locations, aren't we just missing enough of these locations? Is density part of the issue? Imagine 3 sandbox events in each system. Morph, what do you think?
I mean, okay, well, now you're asking a much bigger question, and it's there's a lot to unpack with that. You may have misinterpreted what at least I was saying from that. I'm not saying if they fixed everything that it would, if they fixed all the problems with all of the old things that they had put in, that everything's going to be solved, that we're going to have a game. Absolutely not. Like, there's definitely problems that they need to address with the game as it is, to make it more of a game. And that, I think that means, adding in a crafting system, adding in a base building system. These, like, we need these drives, these money sinks, these motivations for going back and doing these activities. This is like more of the underlying issue. It goes back to what Richard Tyrer said, and I've been harping on this since he said it because it was so well said. That Star Citizen is a collection, is a series of islands of features and I'm maybe misquoting this now, but anyway, islands of content and features. They're not connected. They're these disconnected islands. They're all individually, like, interesting and maybe cool, but they don't make up a game. It's not a game yet. It's just all of this collection of things that aren't yet connected. I think that's really the problem. These content things we're doing now are more of like a distraction because they're new and cool and we've not done them before. And that's why they'll ultimately, become a little bit, they'll become underplayed. You don't see people going and playing contested zones as much anymore, or Hathor as much anymore, like you did when it first came out, because there's not a huge drive to do it. I mean, even with the ships from Wicklow, once you get the ship you want, you really don't need to go back, right? Because there's no way you can lose that ship. There's no attrition to the things that you earn right now. And that's ultimately the issue.
There's no, like, reason to continue to play the game beyond just, I got my thing and done. I got my shiny.
Exactly. It's just right now it's a collector game. Once you've collected all the things, you're done. You've collected all the things.
Yeah. I mean, that's my hope is things like adding narrative and, they're just slowly putting things in, like the fact that most of the new mission, actually all of the new mercenary missions have like a little pop-up with a person being like, hey, here you go, let's do these sorts of things. They have voice lines, adds a little bit more connection to the universe. But, things like story and choice, and of course the thing that everyone has been wanting in Star Citizen since the dawn of Star Citizen, which is your choices matter, your decisions matter, consequences and actions. Hoping that that's what's saying. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Space Tomato, same question to you. Do you think, get back to the question itself. So Janice asks, assuming they maintain the locations, aren't we just missing enough of these locations? Is density part of the issue?
it's part of the issue. Yeah. And I think that's why they're working on their whole system to bring in more locations. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I have too much to add to that on top of what Morph said.
All right, next
This
question
is the
comes.
problem when you have
Go ahead.
when you have such amazing creators in here. Is like we answer the questions right away. Like if I go first, I'll answer. If Tomato goes first, I have nothing else to add on top of what Tomato says.
Well, every so often we have different takes on certain things, so it's always nice to.
No, for sure. I'm
we just
complimenting.
We're being very complimentary here, that we all like each other's
yes.
content. We all watch each other's content.
We do.
I watch this podcast every week. Yeah. It's why I don't like being on it, because then I have to skip a week.
Yeah. We're gonna have to skip 2 weeks because there's no content other than this week because of the International Bar Citizen stuff. Because I'm going to go to the Austin Bar Citizen, so
nice.
Unfortunately on Saturday. So, all right. John Chavs asks, how do you see non-combat dungeons/raids, events or sandbox, instance or not, FPS or vehicle, ground or space? I think he's just asking, like, what would a non-combat instance? We answered that a little bit. I will say I already had an idea, because I don't think there's ever going to be a situation where you don't have the conflict possible. But one of the easiest ways of getting players to work together to achieve a goal is give them a bar, give them a completion bar, give them a number. Helldivers kill 2 billion Terminids. You see that line go up. You see that, I want to work together to do this sort of thing. Elite Dangerous used to do those community missions. I forget what they were called, but they were like, this station needs to be built. We need these resources, so you could get those resources and go to that location. We need this station was damaged during this fight. We need this many things to go fix it. Xenothreat had sort of that sort of thing going on. Like, we need X number of these resources, go to these locations, pick them up and bring them back. Cooperative or non-combat, sorts of events like this just need to be, or not events, sandbox activities could be things like, there's a comet.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. There's a comet coming through this system, and it's only going to be available for a certain amount of time. If you scan it, you find it, and you can scan the materials and sell that to the ICC, or mine it for its resources. And, it's got rare resources that only certain groups want. There are ways of doing it, but I don't think you'll ever see a sandbox activity that is pure industry, because it just doesn't work like that. I can't imagine a way where, like, hauling cargo isn't an event, or even like that comet coming in not being an event.
It's like a dynamic event.
Yeah.
Bring this much material to this outpost kind of thing.
Yeah. So I don't see that as being an activity, something that's like you can always do, something that just sort of pops up and you have to kind of do it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's basically just demand.
Yeah.
If I may add on to that, though, I think you're right that's where it starts. I think that the good thing about, say, the Xenothreat thing with refueling was that there was like a tangible benefit to the activity. Like if you refueled it properly, it would it would undock and it would go fight, and it would actually help in the fight, right? So I think that there needs to be some kind of visual tangibility to the thing that you're doing that's non-combat. So that's another thing. Like, whatever the design of the event is, something needs to physically happen that affects something. Like, you need to see something cool happen because of what you're doing. If the bar's just going up because you're handing stuff into an NPC, it might as well just be like a fetch me mission, like we've seen, from every other MMO in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little bit more than that. Leverage what makes Star Citizen so cool. The scale, the things that you like, the big ships and what have you, right? But I think the other thing that they could do that's not combat is something they've not done a whole lot of, is exploration. Like, say, for example, there was an event where you could use your ship scanner to go find new jump point, like temporary jump points. Like they want you to find where the Xenothreat are coming through, so you need to go find those jump points. You're not going to fight Xenothreat. You're just finding those through points, right? That could be a cool activity. So exploration type gameplay, logistics type gameplay that's in support of other types of gameplay. I think personally, when your activity connects with other people's activities or like a wider thing that's happening, it's just so much more compelling than just an isolated, hand in, 20 sandwiches
Yeah.
to Bob or something, and then nothing happens afterward. Like that doesn't feel like I've made much of a difference, does it? Like now he's fat. So that's it.
Like something like if the explorers scan this region, it'll make it easier for the miners to collect the materials needed for this operation or something like that. So it's like different steps, kind of like with Xenothreat, where like each part had its you could collect it, you could be fighting to keep the collectors, to keep the people like who are calling cargo safe, and that sort of process. So
yeah, I think that's what they're hoping base building will do for them.
Yeah, I think we lost more for
people bringing in cargo and
you're back.
Oh yeah.
No, my looks like my camera gave up.
You can just reuse the link again. Maybe that'll fix the issue.
It's okay. My camera's been giving up the entire stream. I'm running at 5 frames per second.
Oh, but the thing is that I can it's still on air for me.
Yeah,
I can still see you moving in
Video
Ninja.
Let me try my side. Oh,
I can just I can disconnect and reconnect.
No, let me refresh it.
Hey, it looks like I look better in Video Ninja too. I guess it's just an internet thing.
There we go. I fixed it.
There we go.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Dragon Wolf asks, the YouTube comments aren't coming. Okay, no, I already. They aren't coming up. I already addressed that, but I'm still watching them. So, and they're still being pulled. Captain Jacaro asks, do you think a fleshed out medical gameplay is important for raids and dungeons?
I think that this is like an MMO question, right? Like you need a healer. Yeah. You need a healer in the game, I feel like. So yeah, absolutely. I feel like the healing system right now is has been gimped somewhat by the fact that when you respawn, you get everything back and there's no downside to it, right? So not much need for healers, not much need to really care too much about it at the moment. So that definitely needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, it needs work, and there needs to be a reason to be revived rather than just commit seppuku, or to make it so that players, because like this might be a controversial take, but I don't like the idea of being able to double tap people on the ground super easily.
Right.
So like, cameras, what's going on? So like the idea of someone being downed, there shouldn't be a way that you could easily just kill somebody right off the bat, because that feels like too simple of a solution.
Sure.
So like having like a threat damage threshold or some sort of things, so that players have a more of an opportunity to get pot up. And someone saying, why not? Because it's gameplay. You want players to be able to be revived, because that way you have specialized medical equipment and it's easier to bring them back. You want players to engage in that gameplay, so that, and an easier way to do that is to make it viable. Whereas like if you get down and someone just walks up to you and just you're down, like, okay, if there's still like a sliver of time before you, maybe that reduces your time from an hour and a half to like 15 minutes or whatever, but that like not an instant you're dead, you go back to sort of thing. So
I think it should be difficult to do, but it also should be just a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Like the way that they're setting up death in this game, and they want people to kind of have medical gameplay. They want there to be escape pods, and it seems like they want this to be the kind of game where you get shot down in a ship and you land on a planet and you survive, rather than try to do something. And they need to make sure to keep players alive for that to happen, whether it's like for an NPC to come by and heal you, or for you to get like some kind of a extra med pen you can stab into your side while you're down. Like they can't just have people dying, because then also Death of a Spaceman, it doesn't really make sense with that either.
Right. Stop questions there.
Oh wait, no, never mind. That's right. We got our boy in the medical telling us that he died all this time. I guess it's not a big deal.
I've got something to add actually to this. I think that there's a solution. There are a lot of potential solutions to making medical gameplay more engaging, and sometimes they're not as obvious as you might think. I've been really into Dune Awakening. If people have been following me recently, you'll know.
Yeah.
And one of the consequences to death in the game is really cool. it's not a full loop PvP game. You don't lose everything, but what happens as a consequence to your death is that the total durability of the items you own goes down, and each time you die, it goes down further. So, you might think, for example, that and the durability, by the way, you can repair an item as you use it, as it gets damaged, and eventually it breaks. So there's this loop of going out and getting these blueprints and getting the materials and making it, like this whole loop, right? But like if you could imagine in Star Citizen, if we had a crafting system where items degraded over time, if you were healed versus dying and going back to your base where you get stuff back from insurance, perhaps those items don't reduce durability. That could be one solution. Like you can use those items longer. And perhaps there's like a gun or a weapon that there's some kind of weapon you really like, and it's like a really high end weapon, and you don't want it to break that quickly. That could be one potential solution.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Rocketman194, who asks, idea for industrial. Okay, we already answered that one. All right. This is a controversial question from Knowledge, who asks,
Yay.
Morph, do you find it harder and harder to care about Star Citizen given how little their actions align with what they say?
Wow, that's a hard question. Let me think. I don't. It's not that I definitely still care about Star Citizen. Like my care is genuine. My interest for it is genuine. My love for it is genuine. But I I have just become. I said this on stream the other day to try to like make it super succinct, so I don't have to go through a whole story. I said that if with all of they've gotten so corporate recently, it feels like in the last year or two, and it feels a little. I feel less and less like they're this relatable company.
Hold on. My Discord restarted. My Discord restarted for some reason. So sorry.
There he is.
Last I heard was you said the relatable company.
Yeah, like I don't know. This is just a feeling, right? I don't know if this is true. Maybe other people can agree or disagree, but I personally just felt like they felt a little bit more corporate than they used to, and I used to be like ready to defend them if they made a bad decision. Because like I would say, I give them the benefit of the doubt. There must be some reason why they've done this. There must be some underlying thought process to it that's not completely cynical. It's not just because they want to sell more ships or they want to make more money, right?
Yeah.
But that's felt less and less so recently. Like some decisions that they made are clearly just because they want to make more money, and some of them are really predatory ways of doing it and going against what they've said in the past. The whole Blade situation felt very pay to win. And so I've become less and less willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so yeah, my I guess you could say that my care for my care for the project has gone down a bit. And as a consequence to it recently, I've just been looking for something else to occupy my time while I give Star Citizen a break. And it's been Dune, and I'm just kind of going with it, So it
I
really
agree.
sucks. Like I remember playing Dune recently. It's basically reminded me what I used to feel about Star Citizen, like this incredible excitement of not being able to wait until I got home to play more of it, to make more content on it, to talk about. Like I still love talking about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have agreed to be on this talk show. But it's just not like it used to be. It's not that feeling like it used to be, and I think that's contributed to it.
No, I agree.
So yeah,
I agree. I think I tend to. This has started for me last year, where like I was like CIG has started to change how they talk about the game and how they interact with the community, and so like just because summers are usually bad for Star Citizen in general, I actually started to do other games beyond just Star Citizen, and it helped me both appreciate what Star Citizen's trying to do, but also like recently, I just off one of my free time, played and beat Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time. And I
Oh,
was like,
great. I want to
amazing
ask you
game.
what you felt about that, by the way, because I really love that game.
It's really good. And the way I like to describe it is it feels like a video game, which is such a weird thing because that's usually a negative. But like, there's so many games out there that are like, we're not in a video game, we're an experience. You know, that sort of like mentality.
Immersion.
This was just, no, we're a video game. We're gonna play a video game, and we're a video game based off of a tabletop RPG. We're gonna lean into video game and tabletop RPG. And the story is really well done. The characters are very well fleshed out. It's not nearly as expansive as I thought it was originally, but that's actually a good thing because like the main like circle stories are like, you know, maybe a dozen total stories, but they've really focused on those stories. The characters you see in like the gig givers, they all have their own stories, which are interesting and unique. And there's like 12 plus, sometimes even more, stories that they're telling in terms of missions lineups. The main stories are always are intriguing. It feels like your decision. It feels depressing because that's Night City. Night City is depressing. It's always been depressing. It's kind of its thing.
Yeah. So shiny though.
Yeah, it is. That's the whole thing. It lures you in with the shininess, and when you get there, it's like, oh, it's awful to be here. That's kind of the story of Cyberpunk.
And I have to add, like, I want to ask you then, like, did it change your perspective on Star Citizen coming back? Obviously, it's a single player game. It's not multiplayer. They're different scopes, right? But like, did it change your perspective in any way coming back?
Yeah, definitely. Like Star Citizen, I feel needs to adopt some of those ideas. One of the big things I've been having a complaint for is that none of the people you work for in Star Citizen you care about. Most people don't even know the name of the mission givers that give them missions in the Moby-Glass. And
Agent Dooley's like the one that we know the most, right?
Yeah.
And like we almost know nothing about
Weapons free, y'all.
Yeah.
Weapons free, y'all.
That's what I know.
But like we know who she is, we know what she looks like, and we know she's an agent, but we don't know what her personal life is. We don't know about her history. Like, and I know that those things exist. There is lore behind. She was in the Marines. She joined the advocacy. She's from Stanton originally. She's actually from Crusader. She was born and raised in Crusader. But you have to know the lore of her from interviews that she's given in lore from outside sources, which shouldn't be a thing. It should be in game. Whereas like El Capitan, I learned more about El Capitan in his 12 mission sequence than I've learned anything about Vaughn.
Yeah, but how much, as somebody who doesn't play MMOs, how often are like the quest givers actually fleshed out like that?
Very often.
Do they have like a backstory? Yeah. Okay.
Almost not all of them, but they all at least have some sort of story you can get involved with. But traditional MMOs, you have to read text, which is not always a good thing, but at least it's in the game.
Reading again. There it is.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
But they did something similar with, I believe, Star Wars, The Old Republic. Has a lot of those sorts of narrative sequences in it. They're full on like storylines in Elder Scrolls Online with the mission givers and the people you interact with because it's an Elder Scrolls game.
Okay.
So yeah, stay a while and listen. The which is Diablo, I believe, is the main mission giver is beloved. So like. What I learned from Cyberpunk 2077 is CD Projekt Red is really good at making video games. And they're also really good at making a narrative that you want to follow, characters you care about and people you want to experience with. And I haven't fully beaten Witcher yet, so I only played a part of Witcher 1. I haven't played Witcher 2 or Witcher 3, and everyone loves Witcher 3. But I have read the Witcher books, and from what I've seen from the game and the books is they're really good at taking an existing universe that they really love and really making it work in the medium that they have. Similar with Cyberpunk. I've been following Cyberpunk 2077 since it was Cyberpunk 2020. And in terms of TTRPG, I literally grew up in the same town as Mike Pondsmith lives in. So like I met him, I think, once because he's a really cool guy. This was back in the 90s, though. So, and I didn't know who he was until after And it was just sort of, he was at Games of Berkeley, which is our local like pretty famous like TTRPG. They do like Warhammer TTRPG and stuff like that. And wouldn't be able to talk with him other than just say, he introduced himself, and I was like, that's a name I don't get. Okay. But playing Cyberpunk gives you an idea. And so with Star Citizen, I'd love to see CIG learn about can you make a video game a video game? I know Chris wants to make his cinematic immersive experience, but sometimes I just want to play a video game. Sometimes I want to feel like I'm playing a video game because it's a video game. And also, we need to know more about the people in the universe for us to care about it. That's the whole situation of why come into the game? Collect ships. There needs to be more than collect ships. So
absolutely
kind of a tangent, but
I agree. I hope that's what Squadron will be for Star Citizen, but it isn't ultimately Star Citizen. It's not in the game Star Citizen. Not everybody, like, they've separated them too, right? So there's going to be a lot of people who only play SC, and we definitely need to have that feeling of connecting with characters, connecting with the lore, caring about certain things. So I'd love to see more of that too, for sure. And I know it's coming from you. You're the lore master. You probably care even more than this, more than the regular person about this. Getting that lore in actually the world to see and to interact with, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I'm jealous about with like people who do Cyberpunk content. It's like you can just go into the game, you can look through the game and find all the lore about these games. Like the shards that I've picked up are just massive, huge numbers of shards you can find in that game. And half of them are just like random periodicals and conversations between a couple of people. So like you can easily piece together the stories and stuff that clearly the writers took a lot of time and care to put in there. But it's an optional story. You don't have to interact with it, which I like about like Bethesda games. Sorry, Tomato, you're going to say something?
I was just making a joke.
Oh.
Don't mind me.
All right. Next question comes in from Chimpasta, and I'll ask more for this one because I know, Tomato, you don't actually play a lot of MMOs, or you've never played an MMO other than Star Citizen, right?
No.
This question comes from Chimpasta, who asks, should CIG just copy the best parts of other MMOs and not try to reinvent everything from scratch?
I think that it'd be silly not to take what's worked from other games and use that as like a starting point to try to figure out what they could do. Should they copy paste it? Absolutely not, and that's not even something they could do if they wanted to, because there's the different game engines and what have you. But definitely. There's a lot of examples of that, and there's so many of them that it's hard to think of like a single one right away. I mean, I guess the missions we've been talking about, or the dungeons we've been talking about, like a lot of games instance them for a good reason. It's because of what happens when you stick a bunch of players who can interfere with it. I mean, stick it out in the open. Yeah, most people can't complete it unless you're doing PvP, right? So if they want to have that kind of PvE content, they do have to make instances for it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot they could learn, a lot that they should learn from games. And there's some new games that have come out too to take a look at as well, to see how they're doing it. Like, again, Dune Awakening, I'm going to hit that again because I've really been enjoying it, and I think that they've gotten a really cool system figured out for loops and for gear and how it degrades over time. It's not permanent, and how it connects with a crafting system. And I really kind of what I hope to see out of Star Citizen. So yeah, for sure.
I said everything I was going to say. You can't just copy paste stuff, but I do hope that they learn from things. And it's also important to remember that CIG is made by a bunch of devs who've made other games before. So they definitely are going to take experiences they knew from, Ubisoft, Crytek, any number of game companies they've worked for in the past, and use that to improve it. Like a good example is one of the guys who makes the weapons in Star Citizen worked on X4. So, it's another space game who's, take a lot to learn from. So, stuff to learn from. All right. Let's move on to the next question. I'll start with you on this one, more Tomato, because Morph started this last one. Halangar asks, considering we have seen monthly report updates on AI mesh getting considerable work and engineering and component gameplay coming, how long do you think until AI can disable and board you?
Oh my God.
Because they've been saying for years, they've talked about EVA. They talked about NPC's EVA. But like, I swear I see it every other one. They're like, we just updated the trajectories of how they move and that kind of thing. It's like, that's great, but it's a Squadron or Star Citizen.
Collision avoidance in EVA, and then 2 years later, okay, we've refactored collision avoidance in EVA. I'm like, when are AI going to EVA? Dude, it's years, man. I can't even imagine that in Star Citizen right now. Freaking AI, I don't even think they can get out of their own seats on the ships that they're flying.
No.
So when they can disable and board you, EVA is going to have to be working. AI is going to have to be able to be in a place where they can discern an objective when they disable your ship. Like, what is the game telling the AI when your ship is disabled? Is it going to tell it to EVA over to your ship? Is it going to tell it that its main goal is to kill you, to blow up your ship, to rob you? Like, there's just so many little things. I could see NPCs disabling ships. I could maybe NPCs being on ships and repairing components, but NPCs disabling your ship and then flying over to your ship and boarding it and doing something that's a lot. That's a big combination of things.
Yeah. I agree with Tomato here. I mean, way to throw some cold water on the situation. But I think it's needed. Like, sometimes I think one of the problems with Star Citizen is, and I fall into this trap too, is there's so much potential. There's so many plans for the game that you get lost in talking about what can be, and you forget to talk about like what the current situation is. And when you start talking about what the current situation is, you start to like talk about these details like Tomato just did. You realize how far away these things actually are. But one day, not soon though.
I think if they do it, it'll end up being cheating. Like, because the thing is that CIG needs to have boarding working, and boarding doesn't work yet. So like docking and then boarding another ship. So like, there needs to be a different factors. You need to be able to dock and board, because that's the only way they're going to be able to make it work. And they'll probably still cheat it. Like, it'll be a Legionnaire which will dock with you, and then they'll spawn the NPCs inside the Legionnaire as if they were a spawn closet, and then let them go in. But there's so many other things that need to be worked on that, like, and we just talked about Cyberpunk or even Dune, but like Dune, the NPCs don't move. Like, they do a little bit, like, but they'll go in a patrol path if you're going into an outpost, or if you go to like a location, they're just static, like a typical MMO, where you talk with them and stuff.
Usually what they do is they have like something that goes to a location, and then it spawns the NPCs. They just basically appear out of thin air. And that's how it's always been done, because it's the easiest and most reliable way to do it with server frame rates. And there's a reason why they do it that way. It's not that they don't want to do what Star Citizen does. It's just that it's so hard and expensive and technically difficult to do. So,
and it could still look like garbage after you manage to get it all. It could still look
like garbage.
If you manage to get it done right. So.
Case in point. Like they got spawn closets, but how many problems do we have with spawn closets on a daily basis?
And that's just basically teleporting them into a box and then, opening the door. So,
there's an extra step involved that usually breaks.
Then they have to get out, and they forget to get out.
Oh boy.
All right. Next question comes from 20arm28, who asks, it's less than its PvP events and more that it's the King of the Hill content. Do you or your guests have any ideas for PvP type events that are less King of the Hill? I think we covered that. We talked about cooperative events and stuff.
Kind of crazy. Right as you read that question, King of the Hill, my phone just lit up with a Silent Hill remake commercial trailer.
Oh, the original
King of the Hill, Silent Hill, same thing.
Well, King of the Hill is getting a new season now. So
really,
yeah, I think it's released already. I don't know if it's not released already, but it's coming out soon. So
is that like a reboot, kind of? Like, it's been a while.
It's a new season, but it takes place 15 years after the end of the last season. So it's sort of like a sequel. With like an adult Bobby and Hank and the
oh my gosh,
the teams being old.
The grandpas. That's funny.
Evil Tactics asks, do you think CIG is waiting for system updates before they bring back past missions, or have they gone for good? Will they come back in 1.0? I'll just start off with this one because this one's been my bugaboo. I don't think that they maliciously removed them and were like, yes, we're never bringing them back. I think what they've done is they didn't work with 4.0, so they just took them out, and then they're going to add them back in. But I also think that they'll evaluate if it's valuable to keep them in, because some of them, like the Kovalex mission, is super highly customized. So we may never see the Kovalex mission come back because any new update might break it. So what they might do is remake the Kovalex missions with their investigation missions they want to do in that sort of fashion. And there may be some missions just never come back. But I like the Black Kite mission, I think will come back. And I think the sandbox activity with things like the Security Point Korea and the Ghost Hollow missions, I think they'll eventually come back. It's just a matter of they need to get them working within this framework that they have now. It's just, as we said before, it's a resource issue. Their focus is on patch 4.2 or 4.2.1 or 4.3. It's not go back and fix them. So every so often they do. And we've seen that with like the box missions have come back in Pyro, but they're just not back in Stanton yet. So,
yeah.
All right. Do y'all want to add anything to it, or?
No,
I concur.
I concur. I agree with you.
Shimpasta asks, over the years, it seems that CIG always gets into trouble when they move away from their original vision, only to come back and implement their original vision for the game or feature, etc. Do you feel CIG should just focus on implementing their vision? Yes.
That's so funny. The way you've said that.
I don't
Should
know.
they do what they said?
Well, I'll read the question. It's like,
there's
over the years, that CIG always gets in trouble when they move away from the original vision, only to come back and implement their original vision for the game or feature, etc. Do you feel they should just focus on implementing their vision? Yeah, Shimpasta, I think we should.
You want to say yeah, but I've never seen more people saying they shouldn't.
No.
And that's not to say their vision's correct. Like,
no.
There are plenty of times when people say, like, why are they doing this? They should do this. And it's completely reasonable to be like, yeah, that probably could work out better. And it always comes down to, should an art, I'm going to use the term lightly here, okay, some people might have a problem with it. Should an art studio or an art-focused entity do what it said it was going to do, even in the face of possibly failing, or being ridiculed in history, or not going down in the books? Or should they change what they were doing so that it can still live and succeed? And I think that's a hard question for Star Citizen to answer, because they made it so freaking expensive that they got to attract a lot of people to it. So I don't think they can stick to their vision, to be honest, but I think they could get close, and I think they should still go for like those foundational points for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of situations where I think that them moving away from the original vision was good. For instance, Planetary Landing. Planetary Landing was originally just going to be a cutscene, where you cutscene and you landed on a location. The fact that they went to procedural landing and has opened up all of this stuff, has it made more work for them? Yes, it has dramatically increased the amount of stuff they have to do. But I think it's made the project more unique and more interesting. And I think there's plenty of people who wouldn't have gotten this game if there wasn't for Planetary Landing.
Agreed. Yeah.
So that is an example of them. It was sort of part of the original vision, but it was such a limited thing. It was going to be so far away that it might as well not have been released, or really, to being one of the major focuses of the game. The only reason why we're going to get crafting and base building is because Planetary Landing was possible. And I think those are going to be the backbone of the game's late game or like full loop sort of situation, where people are going to be going to the crafting and then building those things up, similar to something like Dune Awakening, which has that similar system where you always are getting blueprints and you're trying to build more things and improve your stuff. But that without Planetary Landing. And I also hate their original vision for hacking. I despise it. I want to throw it into a fire. I hate hacking games which are just do a mini game, which is another mini game that no one cares about. Like, give me something, related to, at least. I even despise Cyberpunk's hacking minigame, where just like find random numbers and letter combinations and put them in. I'm like, I hate this. I hate this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's basically just a puzzle.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of games get like they struggle to figure out what should be this kind of mini game thing.
Mhm.
I think this is my personal, like, this is my view on this after playing a lot of different games that do it. I think all it needs to do is have the effect of taking your attention away from something else for a period of time. So there's a consequence to you focusing on the activity. Because there needs to be some kind of consequence to it, right? Like if you're hacking something, it can't just be click a button and it happens. Otherwise, it's not really that engaging of an activity.
Yeah.
It has to like take your attention for a little bit, so that you need somebody to back you up behind you to cover you while you're doing this thing. It enables a certain type of gameplay. There's a cost versus reward kind of equation that you have to. It just makes it more dynamic, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it doesn't have to be overly complex.
I think I actually think that they're moving away from that hacking system that I talked about, though, because in the last monthly report they talk about it as being like special actions you can do, and I'm hoping that it's going to be more like the quick hack system from 2077, which is just a classic deck building.
That's what it sounds like.
Cyberpunk sort of hacking thing, where you have a program you can run, and that program is designed for this specific action, and this other program can run for this action, and this program for this action. And so it'll still probably be a puzzle where like you have to figure out what series of programs you have to run in order to make this work. But you have to come prepared with those programs already, because you walk up and you're like, oh, this is a yellow program. I only have green, blue, and gray programs. I'm not prepared for this. We need to go back and.
What a loser with a gray program.
God. Yeah. Hopefully. That's just an example, though. Northern Trooper, we've got 3 questions left. Northern Trooper asks, how would you rather Star Citizen go down the path of vertical progression or horizontal progression, i.e. WoW versus Guild Wars 2? I'm guessing they're saying WoW in terms of like you go from level up, whereas Guild Wars 2, which I haven't played in a long time, so I don't remember the system. I'm guessing by horizontal, they mean you already start with all of these abilities. You just kind of build those abilities out rather than getting better weapons and skills. I'm not familiar with horizontal progression. So, what do you think, Morph?
I personally like games where you feel like you're stronger than where you began. So I guess that if that my interpretation is correct, I would still go with vertical.
Mhm.
I'm not like, it's sometimes hard to understand what people have different interpretations of different types of gameplay.
Yeah.
And we may think we're talking about the same subject, but it turns out we're not. So if my interpretation is correct, I prefer vertical. Yeah.
Space Meadow?
The question was about how to progress.
Yeah. Would you
like which one we would prefer?
You prefer vertical or horizontal gameplay? So like, would you prefer getting stronger, or would you prefer like staying as you were and then sort of becoming better at that?
Horizontal,
I
think. Yeah.
What does horizontal mean to you, though? Like, I'm trying to understand.
I would take that as basically kind of like what they're talking about: the things you craft, the things you find, how you upgrade them, the equipment and the assets that you find and use in the game, as opposed to like your character skill level, that kind of thing. Is that?
Yeah. So
that's how I was taking it.
I'm looking it up, and it's saying basically copying or improving ideas that already exist. So like basically, you allows players to advance their character without traditional vertical level caps. So instead of having a level cap where you go up, you can. ESO apparently has this as well, which is where you have skills and you progress those skills. So like if you're a one-handed swordsman, you can just be better at one-handed sword rather than going up the level, level 2, level 3, level 5.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get better at two-handed swords. Sort of.
Right. Well, they said that they're not going to do a leveling system. So that's already, I don't think they're going to go that far away from their original vision. That'd be insane. That'd be kind of like saying, "Hey, we're gonna turn this into a planets only game, or we're gonna make a Star Citizen a racing only game." Like it'd be insane. So yeah.
I think based off the nature of Star Citizen, apparently what Red Dawn in chat is saying is that Guild Wars 2 level 60 is the max you can get. Then equipment and items can help you customize that build. I think horizontal is probably more likely what they're going to go for, because
they did say they're going to do soft skills though. I mean, that was a thing that they talked about a long time. They've not talked about it for a long time, so I'm not sure if it's still the plan. It's hard to tell, but it was the plan at one point for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it will still happen. The soft skills they were talking about was clearly Tarkov inspired in terms of what they wanted to do.
I always go back to GTA San Andreas.
I love GTA San Andreas, but I also love it because you could just you could pig out and become just a huge dude, or you could just do nothing but work out and become insanely ripped. And
or you could do both in the same day.
Yeah.
How they live.
But I think that they'll move around with equipment, because they'll still probably have some soft skills, but I think those will be more like slight edges rather than full on. Like, I have a tier 3 Hornet with all tier 3 weapons on it, and tier 3, versus a tier 1 dude.
Wait. They are doing that though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. They're doing that, which is horizontal progression. It's about what you have, not necessarily your character being better. So like if you have two people, the
equipment that you have, so you can basically buy there's only one problem with that, and that it just makes the game much easier to buy progression with. And that's something that they're going to have to try to resolve. Originally it was going to be kind of the reputation system with that, but that only helps in certain facets. So yeah, that's a problem. They've dug themselves a lot of holes they need to figure out how to get out of, and I'm not sure how they're getting out of that one.
That's
as long as they just don't, put components on the store, I think they should be fine.
Yeah.
They would never bring back Voyager Direct. Why would they bring back Voyager Direct? Everyone hated that. Not getting into that. I found out very quickly. I did one video on that controversy, and everyone was like, "I'm so tired of talking about it." I'm like, "I've literally only done one video on this. I'm sorry you're exhausted by everyone else talking about it."
Yeah. It was like the first podcast that I did where we talked about that. Somebody literally put a timestamp and they were like, "Just skip to this." And I'm like, "Bro, this is the first time we're getting into it."
But yeah, I mean, okay. I will just to touch on this one more time, because I want to make clear, you shouldn't feel bad about covering it. I think every content creator for Star Citizen should cover it, because it's one of those things that's such a big thing. If you care about Star Citizen, that you can't just go on ignoring it, because that too is a statement.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Anyway,
but it's one of those things where, like, I made my statement. I think we've all made our statements, and I hope that CIG moves away from the direction they're going. But it's not, at the end of the day, I'm not Chris Roberts. I can't make those decisions. I can only call it out and say what I want, or what I think is works better. So
what if at the end of this, they're like, "Oh, wait, people can, like, there is a level of the horizontal progression that we plan that people can just buy. Let's throw in vertical progression," and they just add levels because they need to have it. Yeah. That'd be so weird.
It would be weird.
Then you can pay for levels.
Yes. All right, we got 2 more questions left. Northern Trooper, who asks, for dungeon raiding PvE events, would you like to have an accompanied NPC for guidance help?
Little buddy?
A little buddy? I mean,
little buddy.
I love BuddyBot in Jump Ship. He's a good asset. But I don't know. I feel like the one thing that is almost universally hated in all gaming is the escort mission. And I feel like if you put an NPC that you had to take care of through a dungeon, that would feel like an escort mission.
Is that what you're, okay, maybe I'm misinterpreting this.
So he's like, basically, instead of say a sandbox activity, you go, you get a mission, or you go to a sandbox activity and you run into a dude who's like, "Hey, I'm looking for this thing in Hathor. Can I come with you to help you through?" And they become your sort of like allies, what they're trying to say.
Okay. Yeah.
So like if you're a solo and you have like 4 dudes with you and you run into a group of players, 4 players, then you at least have 4 people who can back you up and support you versus the
Oh, that seems like a completely different type of game.
Yeah.
Personally, yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't like it. I also don't think it would make sense, especially for sandbox activities.
It
Yeah.
feels a little bit like NPC Crew, doesn't it? You're
Yeah.
talking about not just NPC Crew, then you're talking about like NPC Friends.
Yeah.
You know,
And then you can buy friend on the website. You can buy one NPC friend on the website. He'll help you with PvP.
I mean, why wouldn't I? I'll get into that. When they were first talking about the AI planetary navigation mesh, this was one of the applications they talked about, was like an NPC that could follow you around in a ground location.
Mhm.
I think it'd be cool to be able to do, because it would make locations feel more alive.
Give them a personality. You give that reason for you to save this guy. Be like, this is my first mission into this with Foxwell. I really hope I survive. My mom needs the money for her cancer treatments. So you're like, you feel bad when they just
throw him out the back of the ship. Shut up, kid.
But I think there's something there's a way to do that I think is quite intriguing. Is like Star Citizen has created so many complicated systems and mechanics and underlying tech to support some really interesting things that other games don't do. Having NPCs be a little bit more like interactive and involved in what you're doing, is like supporting you or something like that, is an intriguing idea.
Mhm.
It's not been people have tried to do it in other games, and it's never been super well executed because ultimately AI is quite limited. But if they could do something more interesting, yeah, why not? Why not? I just don't want it to become buy friends on the website for advantage.
Yeah. I still think if you do something like that, it needs to have some narrative impact. If I am escorting an NPC, that NPC better have a freaking life biography that you can access at some point, because if it's just generic NPC man help you through dungeon, it's like, I don't know if I like that, because that generic NPC man is going to end up becoming my bullet sponge very quickly. Like, I don't want to take this fight. I'm going to hop behind him.
Everybody needs one.
All right. Last question is from Northern Trooper, who asks, spoiler maybe? I think we all got that email from Ulf, right? So I don't know if you've checked your email about
that Alien Week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's already been announced, so it's not really a spoiler. I think it's actually on the website now. With the Prowler variant coming out, do you see this as a precursor for more alien ships to come, or just a quick sale on tweaking another ship?
Just a quick sale on tweaking another ship.
It's just a quick sale on tweaking another ship. Just like the Asgard and the Paladin, we'll see the same.
And the Raven.
Yeah.
And the Terrapin.
Yep.
And the Prospector. It's like most of the ships coming out.
Yeah. They're just, we're going to see that with the Mantis. They're taking the Mantis and turning it into a salvager. So it's like, it's reuse of assets. I think it's a good reuse of assets, because it sort of makes sense in some cases, like the Geo versus the ATLS. A great example is the ICT. The ICT, everyone's like, this looks stupid. I'm like, this thing is going to be powerful and stupid, but it's going to still be like an interesting, we have this now, let's use this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's
economical.
I don't see this as like them doing more alien ships. They just have a ship. I don't think they'll do more Prowler variants.
I think a lot of the stuff that they do this year, we kind of can't rely on being a long-term sort of thing. This is a weird year.
Yeah, it's a very weird year where they do have some new ships, but it seems like a lot of the stuff, even down to the sandbox activities, are just, what do we have in the box? What can we reuse? And how can we creatively reuse that? So.
I mean, at least if you can look at it cynically by saying like, oh man, all we're getting is like really low effort stuff. Or the other way you could look at it is, at least we're getting stuff because they're working on Squadron. I don't like that they're working on Squadron, but I mean, two ways to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the game has changed more in the last 7 months in terms of content than it has for a long time before that. We're missing a couple really useful mission types, but as far as what you can do in this game, I think one of the interesting things is, people have always said, you'll keep playing the game, and like, yeah, the performance might have been better at one point, but every year you have like a little bit more gameplay. Like, we got salvage and cargo refactor and all that stuff, which was cool, but the game was unstable. And at this point, they've kind of stabilized it to the point where you can think of doing salvage, ship combat, FPS combat, mining, and just kind of like freely going around doing stuff, which has never really been true in the game, at least not with this much population. So it's still been a great time for the game. I just don't think it's doing a lot of what a lot of people wanted. And this is something I think we talked about in the beginning of the year, that eventually this year we would get at a point where enough content was coming out that people would be like, okay, this is cool, but where are the features? Where's the stuff that's making this better? And a lot of people are asking that now.
Yep. Kind of predictable. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
All right. So I look forward to the architect reviews, the Prowler utility, and your first look at it there, Space Beto. But thank you for joining us. That's the last question for today. Thank you. Make sure you check out Morphologist's YouTube and Twitch. If you are watching this and you don't know who Morphologist is, I'd be very confused as to how you got here first. And of course, check out Space Tomato. Same. I don't know how you got here if you didn't know who Space is. Check out Space Tomato, Space Tomato 2, Space Tomato Gaming, Space Tomato Tomatoes. I'm looking forward to his
all kinds of tomatoes, ketchup,
his DIY YouTube channel. You know, Space Tomato Tomato Hammer. I don't know.
Growing the vines.
Growing the vines. There we go.
Do they even grow on vines, or are these just plants? I don't know, man.
It's your gardening channel. Yeah, an actual gardening channel.
Channel.
I'm gonna make the jump.
That's a switch.
Sponsored by Home Depot.
Well, and of course, if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more content, hit the bell icon to be notified there's release, and join us live on twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/the Captain's Table, or at the Captain's Table Podcast. Would love to have you come here live and ask your own questions. Like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.